welcome you in this interview series that we start within the WellBe training project. Being a student of the Solutions Academy in team coaching was very logical to me to invite you as general manager of the organization to talk about team coaching, to its connection to facilitation, and at the end of the day as well, how we embed coaching into training in general. But step by step, welcome, and please briefly present yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. Congratulations on the project. I'm more than sure that it's not an easy task and there's plenty of work behind it. And I think it's going to provide a very useful, I don't want to use the word tool, but I think it's going to provide a very useful foundation and base for a lot of trainers and a lot of facilitators, but not only. I think also for coaches, it's going to be very useful to just go through something like this. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Cristina Mühl. Whoever will see this one, probably if you have any questions more about who I am and what I do, you can always reach at any point. Svetoslava, I think you do recall this also, that I said it in the training. If anyone wants to have a coffee break, more than happy. If you have to admit that I'm more than happy if it's a tea break, so I'm more of a tea person than a coffee person. What else you should know about me? I have a couple of this coaching accreditations, some things like PCC with ICF, senior practitioner with EMCC, certified supervisor with EMCC, accredited team coach, and plenty of them. But I think a lot of coaches out there also have a lot of accreditations, and they're also on their path of growing to reach different levels in their credential path. So besides that, what might be interesting for you to know is I started my path with training a lot of years back when I was within KPMG. So back then I was supporting trainings or facilitating certain modules of ACCA, which is the finance accreditation, so Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. And from that world of numbers and figures, now we move into words, mostly coaching, and how can coaching bring you connected to trainings. I picked up that one as the first thread that you brought in there. How do we bring coaching into our training life? I think us as Solutions Academy, we definitely embedded in everything. And I think we definitely allow ourselves as trainers in conversations to bring coaching questions more than just input. And I think that's this is a bit of a shift between a pure just trainer, when your role is in there is to guide and to provide the information, and our blend between training and coaching as we support the participants in the learning path with coaching questions, not only by providing the information. Hope that this brings you a bit into the questions that you
Yes, yes, and I thank you for this introduction. I was thinking when you shared your background that like some years ago, back in business, you would be the perfect audience for the WellBe training, actually, which primary aim and role we hope as a team will be to simply embed coaching into training, into adult training and facilitation. Team coaching is definitely is still, we can say, emerging field into the coaching area in general, but still there is such particular thing which is team coaching. It's different from facilitation, it's different from training. What is team coaching in your view and in your words?
I really appreciate that we're starting to make this difference and this separation between what is facilitation, pure facilitation, what is training, what is consulting. I would say also that there on the map, what is team coaching. And this has been also a step that both associations, I'll just look now at ICF and EMCC, that they've made by looking at developing core competencies on standards, depending how you want to call them, on team coaching. And I cannot just not take this opportunity and bring that table from ICF that says this is how we would try to separate them. I don't think that there's like you draw direct line and they're just completely separated. I think there are plenty of components of facilitation in team coaching. I think that some point you might need to consider as a team coach maybe a component of training. You might have teams that, I don't know, they're struggling with a particular thing, and you might go to the stakeholder and say, you know what, just can we look into drop a small bit of training, bring somebody from the outside and help them understand exactly this thing. It will help them grow. How I would define team coaching, I would define team coaching as a partnership on a long term. So a couple of months with a team, your role being there to encourage them, to support them, to be there, to bring those questions, to bring everything that you know, but at the same time, allowing them to find their way and figure out what is it that what's the mountain that they want to climb. Team coaching is now becoming more of its standalone glass and not just something that is being mixed with everything.
It's a beautiful explanation. I'm prompt to ask you a question that is probably a little like counterproductive in terms of just the coaching philosophy, let's say. But if we have a good setting for facilitation or team building of a team who has, let's say, to have to do strategizing for the year ahead, and they have skillful facilitator and even trainer who can help them with time management, with task allocation, but he is not a coach. What is most probably that won't happen if we don't have coaching there as service as well?
I'm really curious now. I like the change of perspective of saying I have somebody that hasn't went through a coaching course. Does that mean that they cannot support a team? Don't believe that. I believe that also you, as you have all of those skills from facilitation, from training, can always think about how can you put them to the service of a certain team. So I think what I would do if I would be in that position of I've done until now facilitation, I've done until now trainings, but I have a team that needs something more than that. I think what I would do, but I would go and take a look at what kind of competencies are there. And I have to admit that I would not necessarily go immediately to the ICF ones. I think I would go in that situation more towards EMCC ones because they are more vastly, they're not just about the session. Because from there, I already can pick up things like, oh, so I need to listen to them. I have to ask them questions. On the other side, I would pick up that I need to have a very clear contract of how would I want to roll the entire session. Requires me to take a look at some models. So there has to be some models and approaches for supporting a team in that kind of situation. So from that step of I don't have a coaching course, or I don't have a team coaching course, but I have already those resources of being a facilitator or a trainer. I'll start building up. And I think the other thing that I would bring in there is I would use my network. I would use my network of colleagues that might have been in similar situations or with whom I can do this thing of joint thinking, if you want to call it like that, and try to understand for this specific team, without naming, without bringing anything out of the confidentiality environment, what is it that I could do from already what I have to support them a step forward and a small step and a small step. And probably I will be definitely open and transparent also with the team. I'm saying, I think you need more than just me teaching you. You need somebody that can also facilitate that growth through coaching, and then see where the team wants to go further.
I love the way how you handle this question, because it was definitely something like crash course on how to actually embed coaching into training. If you don't have coaching skills, what are some principles, some directions that you can go into so to solve the puzzle, to create the picture for this team in service of them. Cristina, what is your favorite coaching skill? Not necessarily you should go to the competencies of ICF, but you can, of course, pick one of them. But you, as a coach, as a professional individual and team coach, what is one skill that kind of stands for you over the others, and you can call it a favorite coaching skill of yours?
That's a good part that you've added in there, because you said of yours. I have to admit, I was like, listening to the question, my opinion is that everyone has their own particular area where they're good at. That's the reason why you have so many coaches out there and why so many people work with different of us. I mean, I definitely won't be able to do the same things and ask the same questions as you, Svetoslava. And who knows what others are cherishing more from the interaction that they have with me. I think one thing that I've got as feedback that is a skill that seems to be useful for clients. And it also does match with a bit of the ICF core competences. And I think it was developed in career path. It's not something that just emerged. Is the part that I really appreciate, first of all, collecting everything, but then pushing it through my way of structured thinking and observing those elements and bringing them back to the client. So if you want to call it in ICF terms, it's more than just summarizing, but it's raising awareness using the elements that the client brought into a summary. And I think that has been until now something that obviously from being a consultant, from going through a math university, I know that math doesn't sound like the most standard field to come from as a coach, but it brought me a lot of way of how to have a mindset and how to use the information that I get, or the information that I think what I've learned from me as a skill useful for me is to use my resources. And one of that ways was, if you have that math mindset, what do you hear from the client? It's input to a problem. Okay, so let's take that input, make a clear picture of the input, so the person in front of you can start searching for a solution.
If we call these skills summarizing, giving feedback, translating, if you wish, maybe something that is there into something that will be still there and will be more like working for the client. How would you, if that's your favorite skill, how would you advise a new coach or someone who is curious to embed some coaching into their trainers or other practice, how they can acquire, explore that skill?
It's a very nice question. And I tell you also why. Because right now, a part of me says, well, advice, don't feel like I'm the right one to give advice over here. And I think that's the part also that we get trained within coaching to make sure that we are very careful of those moments when we might slip into the consultant mode, into a giving advice, into a mentoring state, or into a more trainer than coach. So I think that would be the first thing that I pick up from your question. At the same time, if you're fine, I would transform that question the other way around and say, based on what I had as a resource, how is it that I've molded, experienced with it, played with it in such a way that it got into a useful asset for me that I can pick up? I think it involved, first of all, acknowledging that I have it. And this part of acknowledging the things that we have already, it was greatly injected in through the mindset also of solution focus, because you might remember also from our training, most of the things that we do is to look into that mindset, into that approach of accepting that we have things, that something worked in the past, and what is it and what is it that we can reuse from there, and in that form got shaped. One way how I've supported that shaping was by, so first of all, being aware of it. Second of all, by deliberate practice, if you want to call it like that. That's a term that I know that we use also in the world of how to improve as a coach. Reflective practice, deliberate practice, and supervision. So deliberate practice I would take from there, because if I decide to test something, I need to also take it deliberately into the practice environment. So I've actually done that in different coaching sessions. I've tried to be mindful of, are there things that I can pick up and just like bring them in one spot and say, here, what do you see? And the other element that helped me was to have peer conversations. And I think this is similar also for now moving out of the coach role or the team coach role, move also into training or into facilitation. I'm more than sure that each trainer, each facilitator, they have their own way of being. Otherwise, everyone will be the same kind of stamp of trainer. And by realizing what are the things that we bring in the training space based on our prior experience, the way we are, or simply the way we show, or how is the well-being, the way we're being in that training space, take those ones and practice with them. See what is it that it brings value to the clients, how is it that you can bring it even more into evidence. And I think the other element that I'm picking up by looking at this process is having peer conversations also within training space and also within facilitation. I think it just creates a higher engagement or a higher quality also from the entire profession. Because at the end of the day, that's the same thing that we see in coaching. All of those peer conversations just generate the space for all of us to grow. And there's a lot of time saying, and I think more than sure you've heard it and you've felt it also sometimes, that it's a lonely profession. You're one delivering and that's it. So instead of just accepting this, that you're mostly working alone, I think by creating a community around it and a peer community where you can bring and say, look, I've had this training session and I think it went not the most pleasant way. Get that support, get that so well-being side of you taken care of, but at the other side of it, being reminded of what are the skills that you have and how can you make them to use in the next situation and be useful.
Thank you so much for your time and for those answers. It was valuable for me to listen to you, and I'm sure that our conversation will bring insight to coaches to be, want to be, to see what are some good ways for them to embed partially or fully coaching into their service and into their training.